Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
Oh my God. All right. I owe you guys a absolutely enormous apology, and I definitely owe you guys an explanation because I have not recorded. Oh my God. Today is March 4th. Okay. My last podcast episode that aired was December 4th, 2025. January, February, March, 3 months, man. I am sorry, everybody. I really am. I thoroughly apologize. And honestly, I think I do owe you guys a little bit of an explanation. And again, looking back, I probably on December 5th or sometime thereafter, I should have said, hey, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. First of all, I ended up moving and, that was kind of a nightmare process. Well, not really. It wasn't too bad, but moving in general just kind of sucks. So that sucked up a lot of necessary time. But besides that, I'm not going to lie. I really, after going at this for 2 years, gosh, initially 5 days a week and then 3 days a week. And then for the most part, I know I had some weeks in there where I was 2 days a week, but for the most part, I went at it pretty hard. And, I'll tell you, I got burned out. I really did. I got burned out. And it's not about the process of recording that burned me out. It's the content that I talked about. And, this stuff is heavy. And, you wake up every day and, you wake up to annoying news and you wake up to things that, bother you. And it really did consume me. It really did. I think for a long time, my mindset was one that if I wasn't paying attention, I almost felt guilty. And, a lot of that had to do with, obviously the situation in Gaza, but it became so much more than that for me. It really did. It became almost like a competition against the truth, and I was so focused on trying to, bring what I think is the truth. And obviously, I hope I've never come off pushy in terms of, pushing my views onto you or anything along those lines. But, I do think that I sit at a very interesting, I guess place, being that, and gosh, we're going to talk a lot about this today. And obviously it's one of the reasons that is bringing me back. And what I mean is I sit at an interesting place in that, I was born in Iran, my brother and I both were, and we came to the United States very early. For those of you that don't know this story, I was 2 years old when we came to the United States. My brother was 6 years old when he came to the United States. So, we pretty much learned English and Farsi together in Cleveland, Ohio. Gosh, I learned it by literally watching Sesame Street. How crazy is that? I learned how to speak English by watching Sesame Street. And, we grew up with predominantly an American viewpoint on things, but obviously we had, the Iranian customs and culture and the Iranian side of everything. And, oh gosh, I wish our dad was alive today because, man, was he on top of all this. I can honestly say our dad basically everything that I'm learning and discovering, and quite frankly, every viewpoint that I am independently coming to on my own, my dad knew this stuff, our dad knew this stuff 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And that's insane to me. Like, oh my God, my respect for him has like quadrupled since his passing, which was 10 years ago, because he figured all this stuff out without the internet and without social media and, quite frankly, without all the tools that I'm using to figure this stuff out. So first and foremost, this episode and gosh, my entire life is practically dedicated to our dad. But oh man, it's It's pretty amazing. All right, I got a little emotional. Sorry. Oh, I need to take this podcast to another level. I really do. I need to start opening up more about so many different things, and I'm going to try and use today to do that. So, anyway, let me just finish on my apology, and my apology is incredibly sincere to you guys because, again, I'm not saying I have a Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens size audience, but I did amass somewhat of a decent size audience, and I just left you guys hanging, and I'm sorry for that. I really am. I just kind of got over. I don't want to say I got overwhelmed because I didn't get overwhelmed. It's more of the getting burned out. And then, obviously when you're going through the packing process and going through everything that I was going through and, some things on the business side and just outside life, outside this microphone, I lost that fire a little bit. I really did. I lost that fire a little bit. And it's pretty interesting for me to be able to admit that, but I want to admit that. Anyway, it's back. I'm back. I still need to kind of really revisit how I want to do things moving forward, but I do want to, you know, have episodes again and hopefully I can earn your trust and your listenership back and we can kind of pick up where we left off. All right. There you go. Once again, that is a unconditional apology. All right. Oh my God. It's like, what do we do? Do we go back and hash out the past or do we just pick up where things are today? Well, I think let's just pick up where things are today. And obviously, here we go again. We're right back into the similar situation as where we were. I believe that was like July of 2024 and that 12-day war that took place between Israel and Iran and Trump sending the bunker buster. And if you remember, I had a great episode with James Corbett from the Corbett Report, whom talked about how, ironically, this is crazy. Like that whole bunker buster situation from 2024. Remember how dramatic that was? That was literally in Top Gun Maverick. I mean, how insane is this? Like that entire situation that played out in, again, I think it was July of 2024. That was like a scene in Top Gun Maverick. That's crazy. And then the other thing is, this is even crazier. I started rewatching the series Homeland, which originally aired on Showtime and now it's on Netflix. It's excellent with Claire Danes. She's hilarious. She's so dramatic about everything, but I like her. Anyway, in season 3 of Homeland, which probably took place in like 2015. How crazy is that? Hold on, let me check that. All right, this is insane. It was 2013 where they talked about it. And basically, the gist of so much of that season of Homeland in 2013, that's Obama presidency. And it was all about, the threat of nuclear war from Iran and the threat of them getting a nuclear bomb and all that stuff. And so Saul Berenson turned an Iranian official and made him a CIA asset, which, by the way, I bet you that has absolutely happened with some of these guys in what's called the IRGC, which is the Iranian, National Guard. Basically, it's like the clerical Islamic regime there, which again, by the way, is terrible. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But anyway, my point is, it's pretty insane to me that if you watch season 3 of Homeland from 2013, that exact storyline and plot and depiction is literally playing out in 2026. If you watched Top Gun Maverick, and if you go back and watch Top Gun Maverick, I think it's on Paramount Plus or maybe Netflix. I mean, that entire bunker busting operation was basically the climax of the movie. That's pretty incredible. And that stuff to me is not by accident. It's by design. So let me talk about what is going on in Iran. And I'm just going to use today to start, doing as really a top line, because again, I I want to kind of get back into this, and I want to do this in a way where I can obviously always have consistency. But I'm going to read you guys something I wrote last night, actually, on Instagram and Facebook. And I really do want to start off with this. And you know, I'm going to start getting a little more honest. And by a little more honest, some of you are going to think I'm a little more of an asshole. And you know what? That's okay, actually. You know, I honestly, I never want to like piss people off. I really don't. But you know, I think I'm going to have to. And I already have, by the way. I've definitely had a few confrontations with Iranian friends. This is more of an Iranian thing. And when I read this, you'll understand why. All right, this is what I wrote last night. I said, Iran, my perspective. I'm blown away by the simplicity of most Iranians right now. They are clueless and remind me of the people wearing a mask in the car driving by themselves during COVID. I'm glad the supreme leader is dead. I hope they all die, all of them. Read between the lines on that one. But everyone cheering right now are very basic in their thought process. They don't know the backstory of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Sudan, Yemen, now Lebanon and Syria. And for the most part, they have barely paid attention to the past 2 years in Gaza. That's sad to me. You're a sad human being if all you care about are your own. This is step one with zero even thought about what's next. You think Trump and Netanyahu give a shit about the Iranian people? You're delusional and very basic. All right, that's not my normal post. I mean, that's a little bit hardcore, and I have a feeling I might have rubbed some people the wrong way, but you know what? It is what it is, and I'm at the point where I do need to be a little more just god damn, I don't know if I want to say transparent, but like maybe controversial. And I'm not even trying to be controversial. Like, I literally meant every word of that. Like, I have Iranian friends right now that are so basic and they're so simple in their understanding. Or maybe, you know, maybe a better way of framing that is they just want that, you know, clerical Islamic regime gone. And like I've said before, they just don't think it can be any worse. They just don't think anything could be any worse. And those are the people that I'm referencing who basically have paid zero attention to what the Israelis have done to Gaza. And again, it's not even about the Palestinian people. I mean, it is obviously because they're the ones that have been destroyed like that, but it's about the ability to do that to a city and then to women, children, and the people. I guess it is about the people. It's about the people and the city. So I've gotten into discussions with Iranian friends where I'm like, what if they turn Tehran or Shiraz, which is the city my family's from, into Gaza? What would you think then? Are you willing to pay that price in order to have a regime change? And the answer is a basic one. The answer is, oh, they'll never do that to Iran. They'll never do that to us. Well, why not? Well, because we're a proud people. We're a people of thousands of generations. The Iranian people are not like, and as soon as they go down that path, that's when I know you are absolutely fucking clueless, okay? Because Netanyahu, Trump, all these guys, they don't give a rat's ass about the Iranian people. Come on, you're crazy. You are seriously delusional if you think this is about liberating the Iranian people, because history tells us differently. Every single one of those other countries that I mentioned, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Sudan, Yemen, now Lebanon, Syria. You know, it all comes back to General Wesley Clark and that quote that I've played so many times about how we've made the decision to bomb Iraq. And then he talks about 7 countries in 5 years.
This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
You know what? I'm going to play you the entire 2 minutes because honestly, I think this clip is, man, it is so important. And, this kind of gives me a little renewed vigor to try to, vigor, that's a good word, renewed vigor. And I'm going to try and get a hold of General Wesley Clark and see if I can get him on because I feel like after this interview that he did, man, they put the screws to him because this guy, based on this interview alone, I feel like had a level of nuance that very few, former admirals or generals or whatever he was had. But I think they put the screws to him and they took him off the chessboard, so to speak, as far as somebody that could be, could be someone that plays a major role in U.S. politics. But listen to this entire thing. This is worth listening to. And honestly, whatever you're doing right now, just stop and pay attention. This is one of the most powerful speeches, I think, that is so incredibly applicable to what is taking place right now and what we're living through and living in, as well as what we've been living through and living in for the past couple years.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who had used to work for me, and one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
All right, you know what? Let me play this. This was a little bit later in that same interview.
The truth is about the Middle East is, had there been no oil there, it would be like Africa. Nobody is threatening to intervene in Africa. The problem is the opposite. We keep asking for people to intervene and stop it. And there's no question that the presence of petroleum throughout the region has sparked great power involvement. Whether that was the specific motivation for the coup or not, I can't tell you, but there's always been this attitude that somehow we could intervene and use force in the region.
All right, that is seriously such a great speech. And, I'm glad he touched on the oil thing because a lot of this does come down to oil. Oh my God, there's so much to catch up on. Venezuela, getting rid of Nicolas Maduro the way they did. Venezuela is the number one the country that has the number one oil reserves in the world. There's more oil in Venezuela than there is in Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United States, Russia, everywhere. So that's why Venezuela, is in the mix when it comes to regime change and all that with Nicolas Maduro. Let me talk about that for a second, because I think that also applies to, the killing of the supreme leader in Iran. Here's the stuff that I just find shady as shit, and I just cannot wrap my mind around it. And that is, these guys are so bad. I'm talking about the supreme leader in Iran, Nicolas Maduro. They've reigned terror in their respective countries for 40 years in Iran. Let me see how long Maduro reigned. All right, so Maduro only was the head of Venezuela for 13 years, starting in March 2013. Oh, that's funny. 2013. 2013. That could be. I'll have to go back and look at that year. Anyway, here's my point. Maduro for 13 years, supreme leader in Iran for 40 years. These guys are so powerful and so entrenched. And then they got rid of him in what felt like 45 seconds. I mean, the Maduro thing seriously was like they got that dude out in a minute, in a hot minute. Is that the expression? A hot minute? A hot mess, hot minute, whatever. You know, that's crazy to me. It's like, how are these guys so powerful, so awful, so everything? And then when the time comes to get rid of them, it happens in less than 24 hours. Same thing with the Supreme Leader. I don't even know if that guy's dead. I'm not even kidding. I don't trust anything coming from either side, by the way. And let me make that super clear too. It's not about picking sides. I really don't have a side in this. I don't have a dog in this fight because I think both the dogs are terrible. And that's really where I net out right now on the concept of regime change in Iran. Do I want regime change? Absolutely. But not with this crew that is basically advocating for regime change, because that means I then have to be on the same side as, listen to this cast of characters: Benjamin Netanyahu, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz. I don't want to be on the same team for those guys for anything, let alone regime change. I don't want to be on the same dodgeball team as those guys, let alone regime change. So you are siding with, in my opinion, some of the most disgusting human beings on the planet in Netanyahu, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, really the entire administration. And you've got to lump Trump into that now because that's the side Trump picked. All right. Speaking of that, I'll have to give comedian Dave Smith credit on that because, man, listen to this. Here's Dave Smith channeling Tupac Shakur in his hardcore diss track, Hit 'Em Up.
Fuck JD Vance, fuck Marco Rubio, fuck Tulsi Gabbard. Donald Trump has made his bed. Like, this really is it. This game where there's Tucker Carlson and there's the majority of his base and there's Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly and, you know, whatever. Donald Trump chose Mark Levin and Lindsey Graham and Benjamin Netanyahu, the most discredited, evil laughingstocks on the planet. That's who he chose to go all in with. So he's made his bed. Let him sleep in it. I hope the Republicans lose the midterms this year. They need to. For the country, they need to be and no one from this administration can be supported in 28. Fuck JD Vance, fuck Marco Rubio, fuck Tulsi Gabbard. Fucking, she hasn't resigned yet? Fuck Tulsi Gabbard. Dude, the goddamn no war with Iran shirts that she was selling. How much money you make off those shirts, Tulsi? How can you not return that money?
Man, he went in hard on that. And by the way, if you don't know the Tupac song I'm talking about, it's called Hit 'Em Up. I mean, it's like the greatest hardcore track of all time. It's the one that starts off with, first off, fuck you. I can't even do it. I don't want to say the F-bomb this much. All right, I'll sing a little bit of it. First off, F your B-I-T-C-H. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. All right, listen to it. It's called Hit 'Em Up by Tupac Shakur. And listen to it on Spotify and listen to the dirty version because it is it's so hard. Oh my God. All right. Anyway, there's that. Let's see. Okay. So here is where I net out on the situation with Iran for today. And that is, yes, I'd love to see regime change. Yes, I'd love to see a free Iran. Yes, I'd love to see life for the people be no different than life in America for us people. Again, God, from the simple side of things. And what I mean by that is I want young people to be able to go out in public and hold hands and kiss each other and do whatever they want and not wear a shirt if you're outside, if you feel like doing that, and not have to worry about, you know, the state police policing you or anything like that. That's what I want for Iran. But understand something. That is the very simple version of freedom. But you know what? They deserve that. Like every other country that is quote unquote a Western democracy, they deserve to live their lives without anyone stepping on their throat. Now, if you really want to scale that up, and talk about true freedoms, that's a whole different conversation. That's a whole different discussion. And that's something we really don't even have here in America. But the problem is we don't understand that because we're too busy being preoccupied by things like the Super Bowl and the latest Kardashian tape and this and that and this and that. But I digress on that because that is a much bigger, more nuanced conversation. But for today, here's where I want you guys, or here's where I'm going to leave you guys. Maybe I'm not going to leave you just yet. But my point is that, again, I do support regime change. I do support a better life for Iranians. I just don't think this way of doing it and partnering, and not even just partnering, but letting someone like Benjamin Netanyahu, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, these people that, again, there is no way most people have agreed with them on anything over the past several years. Now all of a sudden you're riding shotgun and those guys are the drivers. You have to think about that. But the problem is, most people, and again, this applies specifically to a lot of Iranians. And by the way, a lot of my friends and family, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but, this has not been a enjoyable topic of conversation with a lot of people that are close to me in life. And some of those conversations we've just sort of stopped having. And I've kind of stopped having it. Although I do have to tell this, and this is part of my desire to be more transparent about more aspects of my life. I do have to share this story. This is pretty funny, actually. So anyway, I ended up having a date with this girl. She's like an Iranian girl. And I really didn't even want to go out with her, to be honest with you. She wasn't my vibe. And I don't know why I did. Well, I'll tell you exactly why I did. So she kind of pressed me pretty hard. And I'm not trying to flex with that. I'm really not. But she really did. But I noticed that, we exchanged Instagrams and all that. And we were completely polar opposites on what is truly taking place in Iran. Like, she is in the ridiculous basic camp of everything I've talked about this episode, right? And obviously, I'm not in that camp. I'm looking at, history. I'm looking at all those other countries, Iraq, Afghanistan. Really, Libya is a great example for me with everything with Muammar Gaddafi that took place. I'm looking at all that stuff. And then I'm looking at, again, the cast of characters that are leading this charge. People like Lindsey Graham. Forget Netanyahu for a second. I'm talking about like Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz. Like, I don't want to be on, again, any team with those two, let alone regime change for a country that I love and that I was born in. So anyway, I don't know. She caught me on a weak morning by sending some interesting pictures. And I was like, all right, let's grab a drink and let's meet up. Anyway, we meet up, and immediately, again, I mean, this is kind of funny, but it's kind of not. She absolutely, I don't know what kind of filters she was using for those pictures, but the real life version did not match the hyped version of the pictures that I had been sent the day before, pretty much. Oh my God, this is hilarious that I'm talking about this, but this is good stuff. So anyway, so immediately I'm like, God damn it, that's so annoying. Like, just be authentic about who you are. I don't care. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't have gone out with you. Hey, that's just real talk. But that's better than wasting both of our times. So anyway, she walks up. Immediately, I'm kind of like put off by that. And I had set the expectation very properly. I said, hey, let's grab a drink, maybe an appetizer. Let's see what happens. Again, I don't know if you and I are a real good fit because, we both have very strong opinions. And again, a lot of that was politically on the situation in Iran. So she's like, no, totally cool. Let's not worry. Forget politics, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, cool. So she shows up. She shows up again, not what I was expecting. That annoyed me. And then from there, and by the way, your boy is what he portrays himself. So anyway, all right, I just had to throw that out there. All right. So from there, oh my gosh, what happened from there? Oh, here's the other thing. I had texted her. I said, hey, I'm here. I always like to arrive early. You know, I kind of operate on Lombardi time, Vince Lombardi time. So I try to get to places 15 minutes early. So from there, I said, hey, I got 2 great seats at the bar. And by the way, I did make a reservation. So I had a reservation. And when I checked in, the gal was like, okay, you could have that table, which literally was like right behind the bar, but it's going to be a 20-minute wait. Or it's open seating at the bar. And I look at the bar and there's like 2 amazing seats right at the bar. So I grabbed those seats. And then I texted her. I said, hey, I'm here. I got 2 great seats at the bar. Again, setting the expectation, because I'm not going to lie. Not all girls like sitting at the bar, which, I mean, that's kind of goofy to me. I like sitting at the bar. Again, especially in this situation where this is like a first date. There's already like, you know, I don't want to say tension, but again, I tried to set proper expectations. So I texted her 2 great seats at the bar, blah, blah, blah. So she walks in, again, not what I'm expecting. That was annoying. And then from there, she's like, she didn't even say hello. Like literally did not even say hello, right? She's like, I thought you made a reservation. And I said, I did make a reservation, but when I came in, the table is the one right there. And these seats at the bar were open. That's why I texted you. I said, I've got 2 great seats at the bar. So right there, I'm like double annoyed. And again, anyone that knows me, I do have a pretty, God, I hate to say it, man. I do have a short fuse, especially these days. And so I was double annoyed with that. So she sits down, and long story short, the date lasted 7 minutes because I just had no desire to have anything to do with this gal. And so I launched right into the politics. Again, I'm a little bit embarrassed about this. I am, but whatever. Hopefully it'll give you guys a laugh. I launched right into the politics, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. There's no future here, not even for tonight. Like, I have zero desire of any possible desire with this girl. So I launched right into the politics, and she had, come from these rallies, these Iranian rallies. And so, long story short, oh God, okay, let me see how much more I want to get into this. Screw it, let's get into it. So basically, I started talking about Reza Pahlavi, who's the son of the Shah. And by the way, if you guys remember, for those that listened previously, I'm a huge fan, and I have unbelievable respect for the former Shah of Iran, the one that got forced out in 1979 and that died. Honestly, the 2 people I probably respect the most in the history of the world are my dad and the Shah, in that order, by the way. And so I love the Shah of Iran. I really do. I've gone back and watched so many of his interviews, and that guy was such a class act. And I'll play more stuff from him later this week on other episodes. But I love the Shah. But his son, I do not. I think his son is a pathetic cuck, to be honest with you. And I think he is completely in the back pocket of Netanyahu and the Zionism faction of this world. And again, I'll get more into that in later episodes. But I basically asked her a simple question. I said, this guy's done nothing for 40 something years. And now all of a sudden he, pops out from nowhere, not really from nowhere, but, kind of from nowhere. I said, answer a simple question for me. Help me understand what makes him qualified to be the ruler of the country. And her only response was, well, he's the son of the Shah. And I said, okay, I understand that. He was born into that. But what has he done in his life, and what qualifications does he have, and leadership qualities that you can tell me that makes me comfortable with him being the guy to take over Iran? Her answer again, well, he's the son of the Shah. He was born into it. He's part of the royal family. And then her follow-up was, well, he's a great husband. He's a great father. And I was like, okay, he's a great husband and a great father. You kind of just described my brother. So let's make my brother the ruler of Iran. You know, let's make him the new guy in charge. So anyway, long story short, it did not go well. It lasted 7 minutes. She got up, she left. It was amazing. I loved it. She had ordered a $23 glass of wine. That was kind of annoying. The bartender comes over and he's like, dude, this is hilarious. So bartender comes over and he's like, bro, that was insane. Because I think he had been listening the entire time. And I looked at him, I go, that's crazy, right? And then he's like, are you guys the same? Like, you're both from Iran? I go, yeah. I go, dude, that was insane. And he's like, so are you okay? I go, dude, I'm totally fine. I'm so glad that happened. And quite frankly, that was 7 minutes more than I wish I had spent with her, but I'm totally good. And then I was like, can you do me a favor? Can you take this off my bill? And then I was like, no, I'm just kidding. But he looked at me and he goes, I got you. And then I pushed the wine forward. He pushes it back to me and he goes, hey, that's a good wine. Just enjoy it. That's on me. And I was like, my man. Anyway, all right. That's it, everybody. I'm going to kind of leave here. 35 minutes. It's great to be back. You know, let me think through, and I'll try to maybe set up more of a set schedule if I can. But once again, my deepest apologies for, you know, I guess just kind of leaving you guys hanging. You know, in hindsight, in retrospect, I should have done, you know, even a 2-minute episode soon after December 4th and just let you guys know what was taking place. But anyway, that's my bad. I will be better, and more to come. Oh my God, there's so much to catch up on, but I did want to make today, you know, really the introduction to kind of where I stand on things in terms of Iran. And we'll get into more of this and play you more clips and all that stuff later this week. All right, everybody. I appreciate you hopefully accepting my apology.
That was a great way to end it.
This episode was brought to you by the new book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You, available now on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, as well as via Kindle. Pick up your copy today of Deep Shallow Dive Into You, a guide to having a more authentic relationship with yourself. Turns out it is indeed true. Bro wrote a book.